Ah, hello there. Welcome. Happy holidays. It's the second or maybe third most wonderful time of the year. How did you spend it? With family? Friends? Awesome. Cool. I spent it watching more monkey movies. This is actually a sequel to another video I did. If you haven't seen it, the premise is that I basically go through a bunch of movies that have primates in them. It can be a kid's movie, a giant monster movie, or even a horror movie. As long as it's got a funky monkey guy in it, it's fair game.
Who was that funky monkey?
Today I'll be looking at 5 movies. The last video was maybe a little too long, and I think this format would work better in bite-sized chunks. So, time to stop monkeying around and just jump right into it.
I'm going as fast as I can.
What is it with primates and spy movie parodies? In the last video I covered a movie called Spymate. There's another movie I considered too called Funky Monkey that also does the spy chimp thing. Now I do know that in the 70s there was a TV show called Lancelot Link, Secret Chimp. It was basically a parody of Mission Impossible or any of those other spy TV shows, but it had a chimp. So I think that's where this all stems from. Either way, by 2021, this shit had long gotten old. And here comes Ape showing up a decade or two late to the party. Ape is the best movie that Sam the CGI chimpanzee has ever appeared in, outside of maybe his stunning role as Paul at the end of every Jimmy Neutron episode.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Spymate wishes it could be as epic as Ape, bro. The first 20 minutes are these action-packed set pieces. He does flips. He awkwardly keyframes up some stairs. He jumps out of the path of a leaping shark. And he's barely present for most of the movie because the rest of it is silly people exchanging trite dialogue in the same 3 locations. Totally radical, man.
Hi there. I wondered where you got off to.
The movie follows a chimp named Sam who's sent to confront an evil supervillain named Alpha Dog. He befriends the supervillain's estranged daughter, who helps him stop her father. There's also something in there about his friend back home having 2 parents who are getting divorced. Barely has anything to do with the main plot. The evil supervillain, who looks a lot like M. Bison from Street Fighter, incidentally, is trying to create robot dogs. Basically, a lot happens and a lot of it has nothing to do with Sam.
What on earth are you doing here?
Okay, first of all, the elephant in the room. Rather, the CGI ape who's clearly not in the room. He can speak for some reason, but there are times throughout the film where it seems like it was written without that in mind. He'll just grunt in conversations like a regular chimp.
I guess those weird people aren't going to be friends with my dad anymore, huh?
In the opening scene, he's introduced like Batman in Arkham Knight, and the ensuing fight scene is just an absolutely insane display of bad effects. Like, if you pause on any given frame, it doesn't look that bad. They seem to have lit him properly, but in motion he just snaps between actions. There's no nuance in the animation that gives him personality. This is all in the first scene, so you'd think the rest of the movie would be just as insane, but unfortunately the movie makes it a point to show Sam the least it can, as it focuses on the melodrama between the supervillain and his daughter. I get why they didn't use a real ape. I mean, it's the same reason why the one in Nope was completely CGI too. Real chimps are scary and hard to work with. But this model is just inexcusably ugly. Everyone here is giving a silly performance to match the silly dialogue, but it lacks the wit to make it endearing. It's a lot of, that just happened,
A little help?
and self-referential jabs.
Can we accomplish the task before us without bad James Bond dialogue accompanying it?
It's not clever enough to work.
Houston, we have a problem.
Say what you will about Spymate, but at least that was sincere. The guy playing not M. Bison seems to be having fun at least. Everyone does. This movie must have been delightful to work on, but it's at the cost of the viewer's sanity every time they crack a lame joke. The plot was put on pause after Sam got on the island. The scenes just drag on forever, and a lot of this dialogue could have been cut for time, and it all leads to a conclusion that doesn't satisfy. There's no big, crappy action set piece like Spymate or even the first 5 minutes of this movie. It ends with Sam helping Alpha Dog's daughter reconcile with her father, and this would have been touching if everyone wasn't a cartoon character with no depth.
Do you know who let the dogs out? I did!
You know, with the guy in the M. Bison outfit standing around making silly faces at other people dressed in costume, there are times where this movie feels like a Nostalgia Critic sketch if it had better cinematography. Yeah, this movie almost looks like a studio film. It's well shot for what it is. Good job. What absolutely kills this movie for me is that it feels like they had 20 minutes of a fun idea, and the rest of it is boring bullshit. They dedicate an entire scene to characters arguing over refrigerated store-bought pizza. That's the level of comic genius and stalling on display here. It sucks because you go into this expecting something on the level of Spymate, and it just mopes around after the first act. The opening title sequence promises further thrills, and it just doesn't deliver. I will say it's fucking hilarious how this low-budget kids movie has its cool opening credits at the beginning, you know, like a James Bond film, while the big-budget Marvel movies typically save its stylized opening for the end when everyone is already heading home. Take that, MCU. But yeah, don't be fooled by the advertising promising an epic ironic experience about a chimp in the CIA. It's too silly for parents and too boring for kids. Nobody wins with CIA-Ape.
Good job, though.
This isn't the time for laughter. This is the time for Dunston. Dunston Checks In is a dopey studio comedy about an orangutan owned by a thief who befriends a boy. The boy is the son of George from Seinfeld, who runs a hotel. Funky monkeys, hotels, you can see where this is going. Shenanigans regretfully ensue. Yeah, I didn't really care for Dunston Fucks Good for the Sega CD. This is less of a movie and more of a series of vignettes stapled together by wacky animal and kids movie tropes. We've got the scene where an unaware person mistakes the animal for someone else. In fact, it happens 3 times. They do the shtick with the monkey dressed up as the person, and it working. The bit where he steals food while people aren't looking, so they look down to see their... I'm getting tired just describing this. It's so boring.
Like to kiss you goodbye.
All right, but you're so damned ugly.
The mom is dead, of course. Wouldn't be a zany kids animal movie if it didn't feature a single parent trying to look after their kids.
If you want to kill me, just kill me.
Why is he talking to his crotch?
There's a big event coming up, and the dad has to cancel the vacation with the kids, and the lady coming by to give him the promotion is cartoonishly evil.
She doesn't like kids. She wants to kick Big Bird in the nuts.
Throw an orangutan making chimp noises into the mix, and you've got a recipe for something really generic. No, seriously, they pipe in these fake monkey noises over the orangutan. It's not terribly convincing. There are just bizarre ideas for comedy scenes here. Did we need to have a scene where Dunston interrupted the kid while he was pissing with his Spider-Man doll? Why is it so specific? Did we really need the scene where Dunston massaged the lady's back and her getting turned on by it? I sure didn't want to see that. The performances here are generally decent. Most of the actors ham it up and play the cartoonishly written characters they were given well. Even if Jason Alexander kinda looks like he wants to die in every scene. Paul Reubens plays his part dead straight, which does have a bit of that meta-comedy because he's known for playing the absurd character of Pee Wee Herman. I didn't think he was that funny here, but I can see what they were going for with him being so serious. There are a couple jokes here that I think land. I think the scene where Dunston attacks Costanza and it cuts to them fighting in the background is legitimately funny. I don't know, I think I'm just a sucker for perfectly cut screams. Call me a fun-hating grumpo, but I really didn't care for Dunston Fucks Good on the Sega CD. The comedy was tired even at the time this came out. I do think there's a good time here if this seems like the kind of silly monkey shenanigans you'd like. The filmmaking isn't terrible, the actors are trying here, it's a well-produced studio film. But man, this script is just really lame. Schlock. 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 The fittingly titled Schlock is the debut film of director John Landis. He apparently doesn't like to talk about it, but like another thing he doesn't like to talk about, I'm here to drag it into my spotlight.
Ladies and gentlemen, Channel 6 is proud to be the first to bring you Schlock.
A local community is catching a severe case of murder in a series of crimes known as the Banana Murders, the killer's calling card being leftover banana peels. The murderer in question is the title character, Schlock. A missing link between man and ape, and he has a comedically high body count.
Responsible for 789 deaths in our community in the last 3 weeks.
The rest of the movie unfolds as a series of vignettes where Schlock gets into some wacky situation before ending in a parody of King Kong. If the footage and description isn't indicative enough, the film's tongue is planted firmly in its cheek. It's a complete shitpost, parodying the tropes and characters of monster movies.
The fire-breathing Godzilla.
Actually, it's atomic breath, but go off, I guess. While the film revels in the absurd, I do think it holds on bits for maybe a little too long. It's what keeps it from being a truly underrated comedy film. Take this scene for example. Schlock happens upon a store selling bananas. The scene plays out very slowly, oftentimes in slow motion to parody the bone-throwing scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It even uses the same music. The problem is that the scene goes on for so fucking long that the music has to loop for it to fit the runtime. It's a hard loop too, you hear it starting again. It doesn't even have a good conclusion. Schlock just throws the bananas he stole in this guy's face. It's so unfunny it becomes funny. It's a cursed scene. A lot of this movie is amateurishly made, which is understandable considering this is Landis's first movie. A lot of jokes here bomb.
Why is it you're wearing it?
I have no idea.
But there are a handful of genuinely funny bits too.
Why don't you get a haircut? Why don't you get a job?
It's hard to talk about this movie without just going over specific scenes. There's this one where a teenager is murdered by Schlock, and after a long period of cutting between his friends' reactions and Schlock's attacks, one of them asks,
Billy, are you all right?
That actually got a laugh. There's a scene where Schlock plays with a blind girl, parodying that one scene from Bride of Frankenstein with the blind man. It goes on for a long time, and he won't stop poking her boobs. Young Frankenstein did this scene better. There's the scene where Schlock goes to the movie theater that's showing Dinosaurus and the Blob. It's another really long scene that doesn't have great jokes, but it ties into the whole monster movie parody thing the movie is going for. It even shows the scene from the Blob where it invades the movie theater, which now has a meta thing going for it because the characters in the Blob are watching a movie while Schlock is watching the Blob, while you, the viewer, are watching Schlock. There's also this scene where Schlock is almost hit by a car, and rather than just going apeshit, he instead meticulously disassembles the car in front of the guy, like he even motions at him like, yo, check this shit out. Such a weird but Chad move. It really is just a collection of scenes made under the premise of, hey, what if there was a wacky Bigfoot guy who messed with people? The plot is very thin. There's this recurring gag about a fake movie called See You Next Wednesday. The television reporter keeps talking about it being the weekend movie. It's listed as one of the landmark movies that Schlock is comparable to, And posters for other movies have its name slapped onto it. It's so weird and random, and it became a running gag in Landis's other movies. The makeup effects were done by a young Rick Baker, and while it's far from the quality of work he'd put out later, I do think he did a commendable job on Schlock here. That looks like an ape guy, I'm convinced. Landis himself plays the title character, and he's got the body language down. He adds a lot of personality to this ape guy. Regardless of my thoughts on Landis himself, let's not get it twisted. His contributions to the horror genre aside, he was an asshole. Not to mention that incident. Before all of that, he made a little movie called Schlock. In this case, I can separate art from the artist. It's not a good movie, a lot of bits don't do it for me, but there's a scrappy charm to its offbeat construction and silly sense of humor. It's not so bad it's good, it's not mediocre enough to be boring, and it's not genuinely good enough to be a good movie. Like Schlock himself, the movie is a missing link. Its true quality is somewhere in limbo. Schlock was exhausting, and I need a breather. So here's a little bit of Toku coverage. If you've watched my channel before, you would know that covering Ultraman content is what I do every so often. But yeah, episode 44 of the 1967 science fiction tokusatsu series, Ultraseven, titled The Terrifying Super-Ape Man, is an episode that meets the criteria of this video. If you ignore the fact that it's not a movie and is actually an episode in a television show, but just humor me here. The episode hits the ground running by showing a scene where a mute man turns into an ape and attacks two police officers, killing them both in the scuffle. The Ultra Guard, the show's Earth defense team, are tasked with finding out what kind of monster that looks like a gorilla but has the blood of a human could be responsible. So they send Ann and Dan, the latter secretly being Ultraseven, to investigate a primate research center. It turns out, as per usual with this show, that aliens are involved. Specifically a race called Alien Goron, and their evil plot is to swap the brainwaves of humans with primates to create a race of obedient ape men. It's batshit insane, and the show's sincerity about it makes it more fun. So yeah, this is a typical alien invasion episode that's made all the weirder by the brain-swapping monkey story. Considering this episode aired 4 months after Planet of the Apes arrived in Japanese cinemas, it could have been an attempt to cash in on that film's popularity. But it's definitely not a ripoff. The plot here is weird and original, in a typically Showa-era Ultraman way. The episode makes plenty use of shadows, eerie lighting, and close-ups. Like a lot of Ultraseven episodes, it's got an ambitious and often visually interesting and claustrophobic look to it. It moves along at a decent pace, and the fight at the end is good fun. There is the usual cheesiness and poorly communicated moments, but I can forgive that stuff because the rest of the episode is so much fun. Some of the cheese benefits the experience. The silly voice they give the aliens is delightful. They do a time-lapse effect when Gory the Ape Man transforms into his ape form. Also, yeah, apparently swapping brains with an ape also gives you the ability to turn into an ape, whatever. It's very similar to the effect in Universal Monster movies when Lon Chaney Jr. turns into the Wolfman, but the final product here is less convincing. Still, this is a pretty fun episode. Check out the rest of the show if it seems like something you'd be interested in. Now, back to the movies.
Brew! Gotcha, scared you.
It's time to follow up the horror movie from the last video, Shockma, with something a little better, a 1986 primate horror movie called Link. The film concerns a college student named Jane, staying at a villa to help a professor with his behavior experiments involving primates. One ape, an orangutan the film insists is a chimpanzee, named Link, is his brightest test subject. He seems innocent at first, but there's just something off about him. He doesn't always obey his admittedly demanding master. He bullies the other chimps in the house. Like the animal he is, his motives are often cryptic. and he seems to have a weird obsession with Jane, ranging from beneficial with him saving her from a wild dog, to creepy with the one time he watched her bathe. Sure enough, he's a bit twisted. The name Link isn't just a name, it ties into the themes of the film, that being the primate's potential to be just as conniving and evil as humanity.
That is not the way that civilized people behave.
The difference being that humans are more civilized, while apes are less constrained by societal norms, even when the professor tries to force it into them. Perhaps Link falls somewhere in the middle, as the professor's manuscript is tentatively titled Limbo. Sure, we put them in funny little outfits and have them do human things, but they can also rip your arm off.
Man is the only species that makes war on his own kind.
No. It used to be fashionable to think that.
At the end of the day, it's a backdrop for what's essentially an ape-themed psychological thriller with a hint of slasher. The theming doesn't go very deep. It left me wanting a little more out of this monkey horror film. The film takes a long time to get to the monkey mayhem, and I think it does a pretty good job at building suspense. There's a point where it becomes unclear what happened to the professor character, and the way the film goes about cluing Jane in on what could have happened is an effective reveal. Going back and watching certain scenes again paints them differently knowing what happens, and I love it when films do that. But at the same time, it's hard to not see what's happening and think, yeah, this lady is kinda stupid. First of all, she's willing to spend time with the professor, Dr. Phillip, despite his constant red flags. Like, seriously, one of the first things he makes her do is extract chimpanzee splooge. It's hard to not feel for her. Elizabeth Shue is pretty good in the role, but yeah, there's a point where it's like, lady, are you really this dense? Link is trying to keep you here. There are a couple moments where the presentation is a little strange. The aforementioned reveal where Jane realizes what she heard from the professor earlier is a fun moment, but it's presented with this bad disembodied bubble. It's inconsistent with how the rest of the movie is presented. It's like it's saying, hey, get it? It took me out of it. The film also makes use of a low frame rate look when it's doing a primate's POV, which on top of looking awkward doesn't even have consistency. There's this scene where the primates are going nuts on the professor and we get several shots that are in no way a point of view but still have the effect applied. If they are point of view shots, they're disorienting and don't fit the geometry of the scene. And yeah, the final act where the three Manchester dude bros show up is a little contrived.
I mean, look at the place, miles from anywhere, alone in the house with him. Shut it.
It's established that Jane has a boyfriend, so him and a couple of friends go out to visit her, and they're flimsily established at some point, so the film can justify having a body count at the end. There's one kill that was pretty fun, but the other just has the guy being grabbed through the door off screen. I would give that one the dull machete for lamest kill if I was a certain web series host. There are a lot of moments where this production shines. The camera work in general is fantastic. One of my favorite moments is when Jane pops a shot off at Link. We get a little dolly in to look through the hole in the door she just made. It's great. I also love this overhead we get of the set as the camera swoops into this room. It's masterful little moments like this, combined with the lighting and music, that add to the feelings of discomfort and dread the film is going for.
She's dead.
Even the scene where Link stares down Jane in the bathroom doesn't feel like a poorly executed cheesecake you'd see in a lot of horror movies. It's effectively unsettling because of how long they dwell on it. The score from Jerry Goldsmith combines synth and orchestra to produce a sound that is equal parts playful as it is sinister. It complements Link's performance, which is constructed well through the film's editing.
Where's Dr. Phillip, Link?
I love watching this guy, he's the highlight of the movie. The film's soundscape is also worth noting. I think the sound design and audio mixing are really great. It adds to the environment of overwhelming isolation and makes the primates convincingly menacing. But yeah, I think Link is a legitimately suspenseful and well-made movie. The editing is great and gives the orangutan star a real presence. The performances are decent, the soundtrack gives the film an undeniable character, and the camera work is sophisticated. It's not an underrated masterpiece, and sure, maybe the final act goes on for a little too long, but I enjoyed it. As far as I'm aware, it's not on any streaming service, but you can get it on Blu-ray for a reasonable price. If you're looking for a good ape horror movie, this film delivers. I really liked it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and feel compelled to watch some of these primate pictures. Well, all of them except Ape. I wouldn't recommend that one, even ironically. There's a whole world of monkey media out there, so this is likely not going to be the last video on the subject. Stay tuned, subscribe if you want to, I don't know. Oh yeah, and happy holidays, if you celebrate. Have a good one. There is a 19-minute bonus video on my Patreon that you can watch right now if you subscribe to any tier. Normally, I'd have these locked behind the highest tier, but I want to provide a bonus for my Patreon supporters. Due to the nature of it, it is a April Fool's special, so it will be exclusive to the Patreon until April 1st. But for now, here are the supporters who helped make this video and that one possible. Waba, Alcoholic Alligators, Ryan Santa Cruz, Avak Robot, Dante Infante, Ziggy Zigra, It's Godzi, Big Odilo, An Actual Dimetrodon, CMG, Red Comet Harry, and Marpzilla. Thank you very much.